Welcome to the MBD podcast, the show we're going to talk about what's working within scaling businesses and a little bit of discussion on brand and messaging. And today we have a special guest, so I'm going to allow to introduce himself. So take it away.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me today. My name is Ashok Sankar. I'm a technology marketing professional. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. A background in product management and product marketing, specifically in the technology industry, SaaS and cybersecurity products, taking them to market. Right now, I'm delivering fractional marketing services, positioning, messaging, content strategies, GTM strategies, and things like that for companies that want to take their product to market, understand their ICP, how best they can scale and also benefit or optimize their processes to generate demand and drive revenue.
Awesome. Yeah, taking them to market. So a couple of things that you'll be focused on essentially is like the brand messaging. So what are some things that you see brands struggle with when trying to get their product or service to market?
I think one of the first things that I find is that finding that product market fit. Right? I mean, that's very, very critical. Obviously, every founder likes to think that the product is applicable to everybody. That's not necessarily true, as you know.
But everyone, it'll help everyone.
Yes, that's right. But understanding that ICP or that early customer that they have to kind of go and convince and see value and outcomes generated for them. I look at things more from an outcome and value perspective rather than the how does it go and solve a particular problem. You know, a lot of people seem to be focused on that, and that seems to be one of those areas where people struggle. It's like, how do I go take my product to market, you know, and understand the product market fit, focus on that, and then expand later. You know, doing it in a very methodical, consistent, patient way. You know, I think that is very, very important, because once you go to market and if it's not the right fit, you're going to have a bad reputation, and that's going to affect you, you know, across the board. So you want to be very careful about that. That's number one. The second thing is, I think what I mentioned earlier is that when people come along, they have to get the story right. And I know the story is evolving and they need to understand that, right? And creating an environment where that story can be articulated, not just in technical terms or something of that nature, but in the terms of value and outcomes that people are looking for. I think those I find are very, very critical.
So, right, you don't want the engineers essentially to create the storyline. You're looking for the value that's based in the product, right? And I think be interesting. Can you go a little bit further in what you're saying about expressing the value versus the solution?
Yeah. The way I kind of look at things is the what, why, and the who. You know, the why is why are you solving the problem? Why is it important to solve the problem? And what is that problem you're solving, right? And then the who is the persona. You mentioned earlier, you don't want the engineer speaking. Sometimes you might want to, you know, specific environments could be DevSecOps
Sure.
or DevOps, where, you know, it's good for the engineer to communicate, right? Or in those terms, not the engineer become a marketeer, but,
Right.
you know, get their help in doing that, right? Because that adds credibility. So the idea is, how can we deliver our message with credibility? Because marketing is all about building trust and credibility along the, you know, buyer's journey, so to speak, right? That's all it is. So you want to educate them, not sell to them, right? And how do you do that, right? And that's essentially how it comes along. And what kind of levers do you need to pull? What kind of channels do you need to use in order to get that message across appropriately for two people? That's how I kind of look at it.
Got it. And then so as an example, let's say that you had a SaaS product that provides CMS, a CMS solution to dance studios. How would you essentially formulate that go-to-market messaging to where, because what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to make it so that way, I know what you're saying about an engineer. Engineers can talk to other engineers, but I'm saying now you have a business base where the engineers created this product. They're going to provide this solution because the kids are in dance, and now they want to talk to all the different dance studios. And now they have people who don't have any experience with any type of dev, right? So what would you look as that value add? I'm just trying to get an idea how you would create the value add messaging So that way an engineer could speak to a dance studio or a dance professional without any experience.
Yeah, in that particular case, an engineer may not necessarily speak to the dance studio
Hmm.
because I'm assuming in this case, the dance studio is not a enterprise. These are small
Yeah.
studios and shopping centers and things like that. So you're probably speaking with the owner, you
Hmm.
know, understanding what is a challenge or the pain point that the owner has. You mentioned something about kids wanting to communicate,
Hmm.
right? It's some sort of a communication channel. What are the things that you need to come into in, you know, come into play here? Maybe they create an app, right? That's important for them to be, because all the
Hmm.
kids are using mobile phones now. That's where they want to communicate. Security and privacy, and that's because of our background. Maybe I have a bias. That's going to be important. So the parents can turn off and say, "Yes, I approve of using this messaging,
Hmm.
platform. I'm more comfortable with it." What is the dance studio owner trying to convey? What are they trying to accomplish? What's the value they're trying to get out of it? All of those different things start to come into play with regard to developing capabilities around it. That's where engineers come
Hmm.
in. Once you give them the requirements, they essentially do the how,
Yeah.
in order to be able to do that. That's how I kind of look at it. But giving it to the dance studio, I would focus on the dance studio owner. That would be my primary persona,
Hmm.
given how I describe this dance studio,
Yep.
right? There's not like a huge IT department or things of
Yeah,
that nature,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
They want to be able to, yeah, frictionless, seamless, quick to go, and be assured of privacy and security. Those are some of the top requirements I would have. And then that's what I would communicate to them, saying, hey, this is going to help you, drive a better relationship with your students, right? Create more of a community, right? Elevate
Hmm.
that status, if you will, and then go from there.
Interesting. How would you get the value you're looking for? So are you doing a survey to different dance studios? Are you calling them being like, hey, what do you guys, what would help you guys? Like, I'm saying you've got this product or this idea and it's malleable, it's able to be worked on, but you're like, hey, I'm creating an app. I want to know what you guys are looking for that could really help as far as communication amongst your students, if that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would look at what is out there. That's one of the tactics, but you're absolutely right. Talking to the owners, trying to get some qualitative feedback to say, hey, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What is it? What are the challenges you face? What would something like this look like?
Mm,
And then go from there. Of course, you can always do secondary research, look at other apps and things like that that are on the market to see how they might be able to, accomplish these different things. What is missing? Things of that nature. What are they doing today
mm,
versus what's missing? That's one way of creating a unique differentiator for your product, for people to adopt your product much faster.
mm-hmm.
That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, and I know what they'll say. They want it free. You ever do the
Right. I mean, right
survey?
now,
You ever do the survey and you're like, what do you want to pay? This, or this? And it's always the lowest amount everyone selects.
yeah. One thing I don't know much about the dance studio app,
Yeah,
from
it's
what you're
just
talking about. There's a
right,
freemium model that people have.
right, yeah,
If you look at a lot of organizations that are in the B2B environment, the freemium model is great. Download it for free because they want to have a frictionless experience
yep,
for the user. People don't want salespeople calling them all the time. Let me download it, try it out, see how it works. And I go to a certain extent. Oh, if I use these many features, that's great. But then anything more, I have to pay, right?
yeah,
People once they get hooked on it. So understanding what is that hook, give it to them for free. There's when you go to the App Store, for example, you find a lot of apps that are out there that you can download and use a couple of things, and then it's an in-app purchase.
right, yeah,
Immediately it comes in with $4.99 a month, and this is
yep,
what you get. And if you like the app, you might want to subscribe to it. That's how it goes about doing it. The other way a dance studio owner might say is that, hey, I'm going to have this app for you to communicate. And parents, you're welcome to do that as well, right? So you have complete transparency into what is going on. And by the way, I'm going to charge you. I'm charging you, I don't know how much dance costs. My daughter
yeah,
used to dance a long time ago.
yeah.
Let's say it's $100 a month. I'm going to charge you $105 a month, for that. That includes the app subscription. But,
No, yeah,
whatever.
Game Changer, which is a sports app, does that. So they'll get you on there, right? And they'll take score of the
Yeah.
game. But
Mhm.
if you want to watch the video of the game, you got to pay extra to be able to look back on it or do live streaming or certain things.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
now I got an idea for dance studio. It just came to mind because my daughter's in one, and I'm like, oh. What are you guys doing? How can you guys make some more money? It's a great way to make more money. It's a good idea. Now we're a bigger brand, right? We're looking at enterprise. Um, Take a little bit longer to essentially get the brand story. What are
Mm.
key pieces? I guess you could, if they've already established and they have a sales team, you could get feedback from them to identify, what the value consumers are why do they want to keep it? Why do they want to get rid of it? Um, how do you work together the messaging? And another aspect of it is once you have that messaging, because I've run into this where we're getting feedback about the product and we're going, hey, guys, we need to change this. People don't like this. Do you have a process to get it to a team and say, hey, we need to make these changes because it's going to get you greater sales to where they're not, and then the engineer's going, no, this is our product. This is how we want to do it.
Yeah. So this is an area where it becomes kind of controversial at times,
Hmm.
right? But I will say it anyway. The one that you mentioned, the engineer says this is how the product works. You got to go back and say, why are we building this capability? What is this product expected to accomplish,
Mm.
right? Right now, I think people start by saying, I'm going to go solve this one problem. They take it to somebody and say, oh, but I'm trying to do two and three. They want to jump and try to solve two and three because there's a possible revenue stream,
Hmm.
right? Defocusing is a way to failure, quick failure.
True.
Right? Tracking a competitor and saying, oh, the competition is doing it, I need to do it as well, is
Mm.
also a quick path to failure,
Yeah.
right? Understand the customer, right? Understand what the customer really wants, right? In your particular bailiwick, your particular target market, right? Who are you selling to? What problem are you trying to solve for them? What's the value or outcomes they're expecting? And solve for them.
Hmm.
I think the rest of it will take care of itself. I've had cases where we've done a collaboration platform for government contractors. And with the feedback that we got, we were able to expand
Mm.
seamlessly within there because that customer, because they liked it, they wanted to continue using it, right? They would sell to you within the organization. So creating the
Mm.
champion is going to be very, very important, who is influential across the organization. And you see that across multiple organizations. Like
Yeah.
most of the successful companies today, if they're expanding, I'm sure a part of this is their strategy, right? Convince today's customer, make them heroes, make them comfortable, and then they become your champion, so
Hmm.
to speak, right? And then you start to go through your motions of expansion into other markets, creating the JDM strategy
Yeah.
based on, hey, I solved this problem for them. Who else has this problem, right? What kind of ways does the problem manifest itself, right? And go from there. Give you a quick example. There was a particular solution we were developing once, a virtualization solution specific for the DoD. And we found out that there was a use case within police departments
Mm.
because of some of the ways they were prosecuting criminals, right? That was very useful to them, right? It was just a very quick beachhead for it to kind of shift over once we started talking to them at a trade show,
Hmm.
right? So that's how I see it.
Interesting. And within what you're targeting within brand, is there any kind of rule of thumbs that you use in order that you go through every time you're trying to develop, say, a tagline, right? Like here's our logo. Our tagline
Yeah.
needs to be within a certain amount of characters or a certain amount of words, and it has
Oh,
to convey a certain thing.
yeah, I don't know whether there is a science to it. I mean, I'll be
Yeah.
very honest with you. I know it's important to be short,
Yes.
right? Like Coke is it, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
something of that nature. I think people will say something catchy. To me, positioning is always aspirational,
Hmm.
right? I mean, you want to be able to get the prospect persona to kind of, when they read it and say, oh, this is what is possible through there,
Hmm.
right? I want to explore more. I think that is very important to get them to think about it,
Mm.
right? That's how I kind of look at it. Of course, it needs to be, it can't be like a long paragraph, when
Yeah.
you talk about taglines and things like that. 3 or 4 words, maybe, that's easy to remember, right? That doesn't have too much jargon.
Yeah.
That kind of conveys a value or aspiration to that prospect. I think that is going to be very important.
Would you have chosen for a business name is it? Coke has so much
Um,
brand awareness. Like
yeah, I mean, yeah, these things go along in different ways. One of the things very similarly, not
mm,
the same, comes across as BMW. I use this in my examples when I coach
Yeah.
people a lot is that the ultimate tanning machine,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you don't drive around the streets for about 2 hours and say, look, I'm not tan,
Right.
right? It's aspirational, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that you can put the top down and drive down the highway, right? Freedom. That's what it connotates, right? You can say like BMW is freedom, or you can say ultimate tanning machine. So it basically comes along as to how you want to convey the value.
Yeah. It's definitely an art in that, right? Like a particular
Yeah,
group of people have a mind to be able to convey those type of messages. I'm
yeah,
on the qualitative side, so I'm trying to figure out, okay, you got a message, let's test it and see if it works, and I'll tell you what the numbers say.
yeah,
The
yeah,
creation of it, that's
yeah.
a
I'm
little
with you.
harder. Now, in developing messaging, style guides, have you worked with who do you find to be helpful and successful in developing that with companies? Essentially, you got your CMO or you have your marketing team doing it in-house and trying to leverage the owner, or like reaching out to like a PR firm to help with brand recognition, or a particular marketing agency that may be at top of its game for that, or
Yeah,
just within the.
I think it's internal folks, party folks, influencers, customers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I tend to do anywhere I go is like I want to try to create a pool of customers that I could be on a first name basis with,
Mm-hmm.
right? I could run things by them, right? Ask them questions, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. This is what I want to go with. What do you think? What kind of problem can you solve with something like this? What comes to mind?
Mm-hmm.
You know, am I even talking in the right areas, right? Getting some candid feedback, using them as what do you call them? The
Sounding board.
yeah, sounding boards. I think it's very, very useful. That's one. In my industry, obviously, analysts huge, I mean, wield a huge influence,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, trying to see what they're trying to do. I'll look at survey reports, see what people are saying, right? Trying to kind of synthesize all of this data into one area is going to be very important, because when you talk to a PR firm, for example, they may not necessarily know the problem you're trying to solve,
Yeah.
right? They might look at it from, how they come about it might be very different. If you talk to an internal guy, like a sales guy, they're looking at it and saying, hey, these are the three customers I spoke with. This is what they're looking at. They might get tactical. I don't know, right? And then you've got, the analysts who are looking at it from a very, very product-centric viewpoint, right? And then the customers who might be saying, okay, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. So you've got to bring all these things together. And you're looking at it from a broader market, right? You're not just saying solve the problem for one guy, one person, but for the broader market. So that's the challenge, I think,
Yeah.
right? So focusing on the ICP, who are the people that you really are trying to sell to? And within that, who are the personas you need to convince, who are going to say yes to your solution because it's going to really solve a problem for them. All those things start to come together.
Interesting. I've actually done internal, external, and found sometimes the internal group working on the product have a different idea of what it's doing than the consumer. I mean, which
Yeah,
is great, right? Because you're like, look, guys, we got to align here somehow because something's off.
yeah.
No, awesome. Um, are there any tools that you use to help with coming up with ideas for brand messaging, taglines, logos, the marketing
Um,
psychographs, color wheel? Like,
Personally speaking, when it comes to something like that, the thing that I've used is
mhm,
the good old whiteboard, because
yeah,
I've always had an opportunity to speak with people who are great in brand, creative people, the agencies and things like that, and say, here's what I'm trying to convey. You know, can you come up with something? Right? I
yeah,
don't tell them, all the different pieces that's going through my head. The how is their problem. I do this just like I would launch a product. I want to own the what, why, and the who. Let the people who are really in the nitty gritty worry about the how, right?
yeah.
And bring it out. And then we can go and adjust. Why did this come up this way? What was the requirement that was missing? Did we get it right? All of those conversations seem to happen. I believe in giving people this the work that they are very, very good at, and let them do it, and not necessarily direct them in your way.
Yeah, I'm with you. I sometimes the idea of whiteboarding and essentially facilitating, I forgot that's a part of like the CMO role. Big part of it's facilitation, like bringing people together, finding what your,
Yeah,
information, and being able to bring it into the product brand so that way it can be communicated effectively through all
yeah,
its different channels. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Paint
facilitation.
the vision,
Hmm.
get them energized, get them enthusiastic about the project, let them deliver.
Awesome. And so if someone's listening and trying to scale right now, what's one piece of advice you wish you had known earlier?
The one thing I would say is that understand your context, understand the dynamics of your market.
Hmm.
Obviously that goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. And then understand how you want to go to market, right? That's going to be very, very important. Some of the things that have helped me out, right? So we talked earlier about the freemium model and things like that,
Hmm.
product-led growth in certain industries that seem to be going very well. I'm a big proponent of partnership, channel partnership.
Hmm.
If you find a partner who is well versed in certain industry or have some maturity and scale in certain areas, leverage that. Don't try to go reinvent it thinking you are going to get all the revenues or miss out on the revenues by partnering with people. Actually, it's the opposite.
Hmm.
That's number two. And I think this has to be the first one. It's like this maniacal focus on solving the customer's problem. Understand what problem you're trying to solve, who's having the problem, clearly understand that. And this is not a static thing, it's dynamic,
Hmm.
right? And deliver value to them. I think the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. What I mean by that is if the customers are happy, they're going to be your voice in the market,
Yeah.
right? And that's going to help you scale as well. I mean,
Got it.
of course, there's so many other scaling methods and things. I'm just giving you,
No.
the three things that
Yeah.
immediately came to mind.
Great examples. And where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Ashok Sankar, Ashok Sankar. They can connect with me there, or they can come to Ashok. That's the best way to connect.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. It's a lot of good information.
Thank you very much, Jason. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.